as I spend more time in the life of Joseph, making me ask questions of myself. So maybe you have some questions too as we go along. Last Sunday was to the very start that we have a big God. And I know a couple of people said they were staying at Walmart and they tried that. We have a big God. And there were 3 lines that were just like backed up, and she said, "We have a big God." And they opened up another line right next to it for some reason. She just went right to the very beginning. So you might want to try it. Just a suggestion. But I like what it says at the bottom of that. It's hard to read. Don't tell God how big your storm is. Tell your storm how big your God is. And we need to be reminded of that from the very beginning, because the life of Joseph is one of those who has tremendous adversity all the way through his life. But God will take the circumstance and make it turn out for good. And again, as we know the scripture, Romans 8:28, for his purpose first and our good second. So whatever adversity you might be facing, some of us, there are physical adversities, there are emotional adversities, there are spiritual adversities, there are financial adversities. So this applies to everybody. Whatever problem that you might be facing, you can take these principles and use them in your life. Mark Twain said that the 2 most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. The question is, why were you born? Why are you here? And hopefully, if you're moved along in several years, you found out why God put you here. But I know there's some people wondering, why am I here? Why was I born? What was my purpose in this? One is easy to know, the day you're born. We celebrate it, whether it's October 4th or March 29th or December 10th or August 18th, whatever it is. The day you were born, you celebrate. But when was the day you found out why you're here? What is your purpose? And so if you know your purpose, I believe part of what you can do for the younger folks in the church is to pray for them to help them understand why they're born. Some people move from job to job to job to job, and well, I just have a job so I can have money, so I can pay the bills, and I can do what I need to do financially. But is that why you're here? Is that your purpose on this planet? Why are you born? Sometimes it's not that easy to find. One explains that your presence, why you're here. The other explains your purpose. Some people say, well, he was born he's a born athlete, natural born athlete. They were born to be, some people are professional baseball players. They were born to be a ball player. Some ladies become moms, and they are just, in your eyes, the perfect mother. She was born to be a mother, or he was born to be a soldier, or she was born to help the homeless, or he was born to lead a nation. Why were you and I born? And if you're here, I'm assuming that you're here, there's a reason. There's a reason you are here on this earth. And it doesn't always have to be some gigantic, cover of some news magazine purpose. It can be what in you and I might say is a normal reason. But in God's eyes, every person has a purpose. Every purpose fits into a plan. And so we have to ask, really, Lord, what do you want me to do? And I have to ask that question. I feel that I'm born to be a teacher of the Word of God. I believe that I've found what God's purpose is for in my life. I can do other things. I can kayak, I can run, I can cook, I can do some chef work. I can do those things, but that's not why I was designed. I'm designed to teach the Word of God, and I will until the day I die. It's what gives me energy, it's what gives me life. And some days it's hard. You get a lovely gray day, and it's cold, and you're all snuggled in the covers. It's like, I'm not going anywhere today. Much less church. I have to sit in some pew for an hour and all that. But we're here. So let's listen to what we would do. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 promises if we trust in the Lord, He will make our way straight, and He will direct our paths. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust in Him. And I don't know what some of you are thinking this morning, but some of you have this question. Did I really fulfill my purpose in this life? 7 fundamental facts about God's guidance. I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly. Trying to know His will. He can put you exactly where He wants you to be. And again, part of the Red Sea rules was to help us understand that God knows right where you are. He can arrange all the details years in advance. And I'm thinking, why does this amazing, brilliant being care what happens to me and even arrange details so far in advance, like a chess game is 50 moves ahead? He knows what's about to happen to me. He knows that. He can open doors that seem shut tight. He can remove any obstacle in your way. He can take your choices and fit them into His plan in just the right place at just the right time. He can take your mistakes and bring good out of them. He can take tragedy and bring glory to His name. Now, I believe that. Sometimes I don't see it, but I believe it. And you look at me up here going, no, that's not really how my life unfolds. But just because your life isn't fitting into God's plan doesn't mean it's not true. Joseph's life is an example of that. I read this and I've got to think about it for a while. It says, you don't discover God's will discovers you. And so we have to keep our eyes open. I'm thinking on that one. But I'm going to ask Him what His will is in my life. But He can find me. He can open up doors to me. I can say yes or I can say no. It's more like the sunrise. It's not a sunburst. We have beautiful sunrises on the Gulf Coast. And sunrises, let's say maybe it's at 6:30. But if you wait till 6:30 to go to the beach to watch the sunrise, it's already up. It's risen. Before sunrise, when it's totally dark, the light slowly begins to break. Before the actual sunrise point, to see the sun rise, the light starts to come up. And that's often how God's will is to us. It slowly starts to break in on us. It slowly starts to open up and bring some light into our eyes, into our spirit, and then it's up. What is God's will for us is often like that sunrise. Joseph's life really began to change when they gave him this coat of many colors. Up to that point, they could figure out his brothers kind of would figure out that he was favored. And in some families, some days one child is favored more than the other, but you love them all the same. But when a child does what you say they're supposed to do, and they love you a little bit more than the other one, it's kind of hard not to favor one, but you love them all. But there is some degrees of favor going on. Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. This moment changed his life. He was betrayed, sold into slavery, purchased by Potiphar. He was a slave in Potiphar's house. He wasn't just an employee. He rose in Potiphar's house, then falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. He was thrown into prison. There he met the baker and the butler. The butler forgot him. Then he stood before Pharaoh. Then he became prime minister of Egypt. Then he met his brothers again and gave his family a home in Egypt. Not just his family, but all of Israel. If it wasn't for Joseph being in the right place at the right time, and the circumstances with his brothers who betrayed him and sent him on this journey, he would not have been there. If he didn't have the spiritual gifts of a dreamer, he wouldn't have been able to interpret the dream from Pharaoh. If he hadn't interpreted the dream from Pharaoh, he couldn't have put the 7 years of plenty and store this up. If he hadn't done that, then Pharaoh could have bought all the people ran out of money and started trading in land and livestock and cattle. Pharaoh owned everything because of Joseph. And because of Joseph, God was able to get favor to all of Israel and sustain them so they did not disappear as a famine, the 7-year famine of Egypt. God knows that about them. What does He know about you? What are you looking at this morning? Some say, well, my life's kind of coming toward an end, or my life's just beginning, and I don't know what I want to do. This is an example of how that can be done. What is your life? James 4:14 says, for you are a mist that appears for a little time and vanishes. I've shared this before. I was watching Charles Stanley 30 years ago when we lived in Atlanta. And he was teaching on Ecclesiastes and also on James. And he says, your life is but a vapor. It appears for a short time and it vanishes. Do you know how long a vapor is? They got e-cigs now. Those are vapor-producing devices, okay? A vapor is like, shh, it's gone. It's gone. Our life is that's how long it is. Some days it seems like our life lasts forever. This day is never going to come to an end. But our life is like, so it's very important important we find that purpose. We find out why we are here. And it's good to know that maybe seasons change, but what is your purpose? So Psalm 90:12 says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom." You know, how many days do we have left? I always like the idea of the clock, is that we all have 1 hour on this earth. That gets pretty close to that little of a vapor. So your life is a clock. And so where are you on that clock? Are you 15 minutes after? Are you 30 minutes after? Are you 45 minutes after? You got 15 minutes left? Are you 55 minutes after? You got 5 minutes left on this planet. I mean, if you knew that you had 1 week left to live, what would you do? Have fun? All right, some of you do that. It's okay. What would you do different? Or would you do anything different? Are you right where God wants you to be, fulfilling that purpose? If you knew, and I think most would try to have fun before it was all over. Some say, well, I'm going to get my life straightened out. I'm going to call everybody that I have a problem with. I'm going to spend the next 7 days Bible reading and in prayer. Or you're just going to say, I'm going to go cash in every dime I've got, and I'm leaving here. I'm going to my favorite place. I'm going to spend the last 7 days doing what I want to do for as long as I want to do it. What has your purpose become? Mark 8:36 says, "What will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul?" This is the life of Joseph. This is when you face adversity. A daughter was asking her mother about, she just could not seem to understand why problems were happening in her life. And so her mother took her aside and she put a pot of this water on the stove. And in that pot of water she put a carrot. And she put an egg. And then she was making she had some coffee beans. And she threw them in there too. So after a while, after it had been boiling for a while, she took the carrot out. And she said, "You see this carrot?" She said, "It went in hard. It went in just very strong. But the boiling water turned it very, very soft." And if I'd had enough time to get a boiling pot out there, I would have had a boiling pot boiling all morning until we got here, but probably not a great idea, so I didn't do it. But the carrots, now the egg goes in very fragile. And the boiling water turns that egg hard boiled. Depending upon how long you leave it there, obviously. And the longer you leave it, the harder that it will get. And then the coffee bean, thrown in that water, what did it do? It began to change the water into coffee. A nice aroma. So she said, life is like that too. Some of us are like that carrot. We are strong and we ready to face adversity, but when it comes, we soften. And we no longer are strong in the face of adversity. Some of us, when adversity comes, we have that soft heart and we start getting very, very hard against it. It does. The bitterness that comes makes us strong and hard against the world around us. But the third one is the coffee bean. What did it do? The coffee bean changed the water. When adversity came, it changed the circumstance around it. So what are you? Are you a carrot? Are you an egg? Are you a coffee bean? Joseph was that coffee bean. He was able to take adversity, whether he was thrown into that pit, whether he was thrown into prison, whether he was asked to stand before Pharaoh at the cost of his life. He was able to take it and he changed his circumstance. One man. This wasn't a whole bunch of Joseph dreamers. This was one man who could change the circumstances of his life. And you know what? I need to hear that. I may not change the circumstance of 100 people, or 200 people, or 5 churches over 30 years, or friends from high school, or friends of my family. But I have an opportunity that either I can go weak, I can get hard against the circumstances that have come my way in life, and I've had a few of them, or I can become like that coffee bean and change the circumstance around me. All were thrown in the same boiling water, but each of the 3 reacted differently. And I know, one's a vegetable, one's an egg, and one's a coffee bean. I know that's what they're supposed to do. But you know what? That was their purpose. They fulfilled that purpose. Now, on the positive side, if you like to eat carrots, some of us like them hard, some of us like them soft, some like poached eggs, some like hard-boiled eggs, and some of us like coffee, and some of us don't. You know? But when adversity comes, it has an effect on each and every one of us. And so here's Joseph. And I want to go through a couple steps from Genesis chapter 37, the next few moments we have. I'm trying to kind of edit this as we go. I've got more on than I need to have for this morning. But he worked the family business. Verse 2. He was 17 years old, pasturing the flock with his brothers. But it also says in verse 2, it says, Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And he brought to their father a bad report about them. He had different values. And so Joseph, 17, not only was he favored, but he was kind of tattletale upon his brothers too, which made to them, would make him look even better. He was marked out as special at an early age. Verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made a richly ornamented robe, or a coat of many colors for him. And Charlie, I appreciate you posting that about Donald. He was listening. And she got a new, like a sweater shirt, or, yeah, with all these different colors on it. Donald goes, that reminds me of Pastor Joey's sermon from last Sunday. So I know at least one person's listening. So I was very glad to hear that. But God can take these things into our natural life. This is often a part of the story that everybody knows. The coat of many colors, the multicolored coat. And I shared with you last week that it probably wasn't the heavy coat that you often see, but it was one that he would wear in the desert that was set him apart as favored in that particular family. He had strange dreams, verses 5 and 8. I won't go over those dreams because we're going to look at them later on. But in each of those dreams, it showed that his brothers were bowing down to him. And though he didn't understand fully what it meant, he knew that one day he would be a leader. I feel this way. In this church, there are leaders. And some of you leaders have not yet stepped forward to lead where God has called you to. We often let someone else do it, or though they're willing to lead out this area. If God is calling you to lead in a certain area in the church, we need to know about it. We don't have to wait for some committee to decide. We don't have to wait for some deacons meeting or some business meeting. If you feel God is leading you to a certain ministry, we need to know about it. God doesn't just speak to one or two people. He speaks to every one of us. Amen? God speaks to you. I would love to see different formats of worship where you would come on Sunday morning with the word from God or a song. And sometimes you don't have to come up here like ladies and others do and solos and practice hour upon hour. You might come here one Sunday morning and God's got a song on your heart, and we need to hear it. Now, I do believe in order in a church. And so often in churches that are able to do that, the elders test that song or test that word, or you have a testimony to give. And I tell you what, deacons and pastors will be glad to get with you to do that. But if you have a song to sing, you need to sing it. If you have a word to share, you need to share it. We have a way of doing worship that's just been the same way for hundreds of years. And so I don't always have the message. They don't always have the song that they did this morning, a wonderful song. But you often come with something. And I know I'm talking maybe 2 or 3 of you right now, but you need to become the leader in this church that God has called you to be. And the person to talk to is standing right here. You come talk to me. Say, Pastor, I feel like leading out of this area. And lead doesn't mean you have to be in charge of everything, because that's usually go, well, if I say something, I'm going to get stuck with it. Yeah, probably. But I'm not the one sticking you with it. God is. And some of you already shared some good ideas with me. We've got to learn how to implement them. But listen to what's being said. You have a dream, and that dream is going to be challenged. If you really have a dream for what God wants to do with us in this church or the Mississippi Gulf Coast, you know, Roger, this is kind of a little, almost a rabbit. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you know, Roger's trying to get you to praise a little bit more with with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And we know it's kind of a cold day. We're just glad you're here this morning personally. I almost put those covers back and said, Roger could preach for me today, and I just call him and pretend like I'm sick or something and sticking with that. But I'm not going to do that. But when we sing, you know, we're not the only church singing. Shake your head. You understand that? Because Missionary Baptist Church is to a little block down. There's a little storefront church over at Rouse's parking lot. There's a Methodist church just a little bit further that way. Calvin Road's a little bit further that way. We keep branching down. We hit the Episcopal Church. We see Bay Vista. We go a little further that way. We hit Pass Road. So all across the Gulf Coast, just about the same time on Sunday morning, voices are going up. And I can almost imagine if I was, if God was just kind of like just above us, that at the lower level, he hears JJ singing. And then he hears Jenny singing. A little bit higher up, just above us, he kind of hears this area around here singing. And there's voices going up from all these buildings. I mean, just because there's a roof doesn't mean it stops. And a little higher up, this entire Gulf Coast, in church, from Ocean Springs to Pass Christian to Bay St. Louis, church by church by church by church, different denomination. I mean, it doesn't matter who or what we are, but the voices are all going up, and God's here. But sometimes we get a little, like we don't, wish we had twice as many people here this morning. So I'm sure every other church does too. But I'll tell you, together, this morning, just from the Gulf Coast, praises just went up. And God heard all of us together. A huge chorus of thousands of people was singing praises to His name at different times between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock. I mean, they're all going up. And that's how God's being praised. He's not worried how the Baptists are singing or the missionary Baptists are singing or the Methodists are singing this morning. He's just letting us sing. And Roger's here trying to lead us to sing. And there's other worship leaders in other churches trying to help them to sing. But we're not singing so each of us can hear it. We're singing to God. And He's hearing that. And that's kind of a dream or a vision I was seeing as we were singing, that God is pleased by that. And so if you have a dream, don't give up on it. It's really, it can happen. And not only that, his brothers hated him more and more. It says in verse 4, his brothers hated him. In verse 5, they hated him even more. Verse 8 says they hated him even more than that. And then verse 11, it says, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Strange. I think his father didn't go out and say, well, now, Joseph, you need to cool it. Maybe you shouldn't wear that coat of many colors this week. Your brothers are getting kind of jealous of him, but his father knew it. And so Joseph's earthly father knew what was going on. Your heavenly Father knows what's going on in your life. He knows what's going on in your life. And some of you are in situations at work where your fellow employees, they're jealous of you. Or you might be in a place where you have friends and they're jealous of your situation and envious. And instead of being a blessing to you, they are hurting you. Hebrews 12:15 says, that he warns us that no root of bitterness spring up to cause trouble. And Proverbs 14:30 says, a tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot. Well, eventually his brothers did betray him. After they threw him in the pit, they did what was often callous, they went ahead and had a meal. They were glad to see him go. They didn't care. What sort of men do that? So the deal was done. They sold him to a caravan coming across for 20 pieces of silver. He ended up a slave in Egypt. And one commentator wrote this, and I thought it was interesting. In all of chapter 37, God's name is not mentioned one time. And it's interesting when you interpret the Bible, little things like that often say something to us. Why in one chapter of a significant chapter was God's name not mentioned at all? So in that, we have a chapter where the betrayal and the anger and the jealousy of man is portrayed as the source of that evil. So from this, we know his story, where it went. It went from here, the moment in which his brothers turned on him, but it was a moment in which his purpose is revealed, where he now, at the very end of this, his brothers do exactly what his dream said. They bowed to him. They bowed down because they didn't recognize him. And then what did he do next? He didn't punish them. He went and embraced them. His purpose wasn't revenge. His purpose was to actually help his family and all of Israel to survive. There are two lessons to learn from this today. When God chooses a leader, he often allows enemies to arise who will put him to the test. Now, let me talk to dads and grandfathers for a moment. Men, in your home, you will be put to the test. When you arrive to that place of leadership and purpose, you will be tested. Matter of fact, you'll probably be tested by your own children. God allows such things to develop you. God knows what's going on. I know I've been tested. I know that you who are parents are tested. Amen? Amen. You are. And you go, wouldn't it be just lovely if every child was perfect? Every child was manageable. They always did what they were told to do. But you know what? That's not how it is. So I guess the word is suck it up and get over it. That's the way it is. But think about it this way. God's making you into a leader. And when God chooses a leader, not even the enemies can stop him from doing God's will. Joseph was given a dream. His brothers became his enemy. He knew what it was to be. He was thrown in prison. He was accused of adultery. All these things. And God still was able to do his will through him. I'm not dead yet. When someone said, how do you know that when God's not through with you? As long as you're breathing, God's not through with you. It's so many things that can happen in this life. You know, I will let them overwhelm me at moments. And then I get back to what I call the zone, and I feel like I can do anything. If God cannot stop me, and God can stop me. Your enemies cannot stop you. Your enemies cannot stop me. And the enemies of a church cannot stop it for fulfilling His purpose. I still am amazed. 140-something years this church has been. Is God done with Handsboro Baptist Church? I will give you a resounding no, He is not done with Handsboro Baptist Church. Do we need to sing praises to His name better? Yes, we do. You know, sometimes it's hard to do that, but if you'll praise Him and sing glory to His name, you'll feel better about it. This is a kind of a sad story of adversity. If you don't recognize the person on your left, that is Rick Warren. Rick Warren wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, and let me just read the story. On April 5th, 2013 was the worst day in Rick Warren's life. He and his wife Kay sensed that something was not quite right. Their 27-year-old son Matthew had suffered from mental illness all his life. As Rick would later say, he and Kay had done what they could to help their son, including seeking help from the best medical experts and the best therapists they could find. When they went to Matthew's apartment that day, they found it locked. No one came to the door when they knocked. Fearing the worst, they called the police and entered the apartment and confirmed their fears. Their son, who they loved so much, had taken his own life. Rick said in a funeral service, he said, God knows what it's like to lose a son. And because he wrote Purpose-Driven Life, and he's well known in the media circles, this got a lot of media attention upon him. After his son's suicide, Rick stayed out of the pulpit for almost 4 months. He returned on the weekend of July 27th and 28th, and Rick and Kay both spoke to the Saddleback congregation, thanking them for their love and support, trying to explain how Christian faith helped them through this tragedy. Then he added, when you go through a difficult time, you automatically start to try to find an answer. But explanations never brought comfort. You don't need explanations. You need the presence of God. And at the close of that funeral service, they sung a song that we often sing to, Blessed Be the Name. And the last lines of that chorus are these. He gives and takes away. He gives and takes away my heart. He gives and takes away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. When we face adversity, when we face struggle, and this again is like an introduction to Joseph's life, it's chapter 37. And why was the God name not in those verses? Because there are times when we don't think God is there. Let's just admit it. When his problems happen, we say, God, where are you? And just like his name is missing from chapter 37, his name is also missing from our lives. But no matter what we face, number one, we got a big God. And number two, he is there to direct us. Will we choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name? Pray with me, please. Father, we want to be a church that blesses your name at all